Welcome to our section on backup and restore databases. If you'd like to follow along, we have a URL right here on our slide for you to use. Even if you do nothing else to increase your availability with features like AG or active georeplication, you must have a solid backup and recovery strategy, because when, for some reason, a feature fails, you will have to restore databases from backups. In this session, we will learn the various options on how to implement database backups and restores for IaaS and PaaS in Azure. Let's talk about some backup and restore fundamentals for IaaS. Let's see these SQL Server recovery models listed here: full, bulk logged, and simple, and how they determine the types of backups and restore options we have available. In full and bulk log recovery models, transaction log backups are supported, enabling point-in-time recovery, which is essential for minimizing data loss. In contrast, the simple recovery model does not support transaction log backups, making it really unsuitable for scenarios requiring granular recovery. The benefits include enhanced data protection, the ability to recover from failures with minimal data loss, and flexibility in backup strategies. Backups are foundational to any recovery strategy and can be your plan F when every other restore option has failed. Best practices involve using the full recovery model for mission-critical databases, scheduling regular full and differential backups, and performing frequent transaction log backups, and of course, testing the restore procedures to ensure readiness in a disaster recovery scenario. Azure Backup can be used to protect entire virtual machines that host SQL Server, offering a comprehensive recovery solution. These backups are SQL Server aware through the use of the volume shadow copy service, which ensures crash-consistent snapshots that do not corrupt SQL Server upon restoring. This method is particularly useful for defending against threats like ransomware, as it captures the entire VM state. However, it's important to note that combining SQL Server backups with snapshots can introduce complications, especially if snapshots have a delay that interferes with our SQL Server's availability features like always-on availability groups. To mitigate such issues, Microsoft recommends setting the registry key use VSS copy backup to true. Additionally, users should test their backup strategies to ensure they meet recovery time objectives and recovery point objectives as well. Some best practices for VM-level backups include regularly testing restore procedures, monitoring the impact of the backup operation on performance, and ensuring that backup configurations align with our organization's high availability and disaster recovery strategies. Here we see how to configure automated backups for SQL Server using Azure SQL Server Resource Provider, which supports infrastructure as a service virtual machines with SQL Server installed. Backups are supported on an Azure storage account and managed by Azure, allowing users to customize the backup schedule, its frequency, and retention period. A key note is that this method is only available for Windows Server-based SQL Server installations, and users must choose a single backup method. Using multiple methods can disrupt the log chain, especially if backups are also configured inside the virtual machine. Benefits include simplified backup management, improved reliability, and flexible scheduling. Use cases include routine database maintenance and disaster recovery planning. Best practices here involve setting appropriate retention durations, enabling encryption for backup protection, and scheduling backups during off-peak hours to minimize their performance impact. SQL Server backups in a virtual machine environment can be performed similar to on-premise setups by directing backups to either a locally attached disk or to network shares, which also include Azure-based storage, and we'll see this actually in our lab coming up. This approach offers flexibility and familiarity for organizations transitioning to the cloud while maintaining existing backup strategies. Benefits include cost-effective storage utilization and the ability to use native SQL Server tools, and improved redundancy when backups are regularly copied from the VM. Use in a hybrid environment where consistent backup practices are needed across on-prem and cloud systems, and in disaster recovery planning where critical data must be protected against VM failures. Best practices here involve scheduling regular backups, ensuring backups are copied to offsite or cloud storage for resilience, and routinely validating the backup integrity. And restore procedures are done on a consistent basis. SQL Server databases can be backed up directly to the Azure Blob Storage using a URL. This is a method supported both on-prem and in our IaaS solutions here. This approach requires an Azure storage account and a blob container with authentication configured via a SQL Server credential, preferably using a shared access signature for enhanced security and cost efficiency using block blobs. The process is supported by the SQL Server Management Studio using T-SQL and even through PowerShell, giving us a little bit more flexibility on how we want to manage it. For example, a T-SQL command can back up a transaction log to a URL, enabling cloud-based storage that is resilient and scalable. This method is especially useful for geo-redundant backup strategies, as Azure Blob Storage can be geo-replicated to protect against regional failures. Some best practices for using backup to URL include ensuring proper authentication setup and regularly testing restore procedures that they meet our RTO and RPO goals. Additionally, when using this method in VMs, it behaves like a local backup option, making it a very practical and secure solution for hybrid and cloud-based SQL Server deployments. The automated backup and restore process for Azure SQL Database has full backups occurring weekly, differential backups every 12 to 24 hours, which you can adjust, and transaction log backups every 5 to 10 minutes. These backups are stored in our RAGRS blobs, ensuring geo-redundancy and high availability. Each database is individually configured for backup and restore, including the ability to recover deleted databases. This system supports business continuity and disaster recovery by minimizing downtime and protecting data from corruption or loss. It also helps organizations meet regulatory requirements through secure, policy-driven retention of backups used for mission-critical applications, compliance-driven industries, and systems requiring point-in-time recovery. Best practices here are to involve testing restore procedures regularly and applying long-term retention policies for essential data. The process of restoring a Azure SQL database to a specific moment in time is essential for recovering from accidental deletions, data corruption, or operational errors. The default retention period is 7 days, but as you know, it can be extended up to 35 days, which gives us more flexibility based on our business continuity needs. Note that you cannot overwrite an existing database during a restore, and tags from the original database are not preserved, which are important considerations for some of our post-restore configuration options. So benefits here include minimizing data loss, enabling precise recovery, and supporting operational resilience. You might want to use this where you want to restore a database from accidental data modification or recovering from an application bug that maybe infected your data integrity. And then consider setting appropriate retention policies. Make certain to test the restore procedures regularly and document your backup and restore workflows so that we can ensure the naming conventions and tagging strategies are reapplied after restoration to maintain consistency for our resource management. Azure automatically generates backups for databases in managed instances, enabling point-in-time restores similar to our Azure SQL database. For more control, users can manually backup databases using the backup to URL method here, which requires configuring credentials to access that Azure blob storage. So a key distinction here is that only the copy-only full backup are allowed here for the Azure managed instance, and this will help to maintain the log chain. Note that this T-SQL example for backing up your Contoso database file, contoso.back, listed here, it's showing the Azure storage account name that is stored in the Azure blob storage under blob.core.windows.net inside the test container using this copy-only command that you can use only here with the Azure SQL managed instance. However, do note that these backups are not compatible with the Azure SQL database. Understanding the constraints here of the copy-only backups and ensuring proper credential configuration are also critical for maintaining a reliable and secure backup strategy here inside our Azure SQL managed instance. Now it's time for our knowledge check. Question 1. What is the destination of a backup to URL in SQL Server or Azure SQL Database Managed Instance? Answer, blob. Question 2, what is the default redundancy option for Azure SQL databases? Answer, geo-redundant backup storage. Question 3, which option should you use for geographic failover instances of SQL managed instance? Answer, auto failover groups. Now let's see how to back up and restore from a URL. I'm going to suggest that you walk through this, that you take your time, because there's a lot of places that you can kind of get caught up a bit. But to start this lab off, I have restored the AdventureWorks 2017 database to my SQL Server, and you can see it over there on the right-hand side. And I'm going to go ahead now and open up Bash. So what I've done is I've spent some time logging in, and I've loaded Bash, and I went here into search and I typed in get space bash. Get space bash is what I typed in. I got the app and I was able to use it and run on Bash through this interface. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to go into Notepad, because there's a lot of things that we're going to want to have typed out for us. And on Notepad might be helpful actually. And I'm going to put a couple of entries there so I can copy them easier. And what I'm going to do first is I've logged in, and I'll do a login here. And then I've logged in and I got into Azure. So I've logged into Azure via that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put in some of the code to start off with. So the very first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a storage account. And I'm going to give it a name, and it's going to be stored inside my resource group. So I have a resource group that I'm going to use, and it's going to let me go find its name quickly here. So it should be in Azure already. And so I'm going to click into our web browser here, and I'm going to get into Azure. And I've already logged in, so it should be okay, a little faster. And I'm going to go out to the resource groups and see the resource groups there that I currently have. And right now I believe I just have one resource group. So this is the resource group created for this. So I'm going to copy that resource group name and I'm going to paste it in here in the notepad so I can use it. And I just add that into the top here. So I have the resource group at the very top and I'm going to work with this resource group name into what we're going to do here. I'm going to create the storage account at using this resource group. It has a unique name, a unique number there, and I'm going to add that in, and it's going to let me set that up. And we're going to need to copy that on a pretty frequent basis, so I have it here in the notepad. I'm just going to leave it open. The other thing I need to check, which I did not, is I need to check the name of my actual location of that resource group, and it's going to be West US. So I'm going to change this out to be West US and just West US without the 2. Okay, so I have that. And then I'm going to go give my new storage account a name. And I'm going to use, really the number here is right here, so it matches the resource group also. That's a way it's a lot easier to track. So I put that in there. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to go ahead and paste it into Bash so that we can run the command via Bash. And I'm going to paste it in. And I'm going to do that right here by right-clicking and choosing Paste. And sometimes you get some extra characters that are added in on this. And so I'm going to look for those little tildes there. And I'm going to go to the beginning. And I just have it left to the arrow here. And I'm going to do some backspaces right there to line it up. I'm going to get to the beginning of the line, and then I'm going to hit Enter, and it's going to take a moment, but what we have to is it will create our storage account there in the resource group, and it's going to be built in West US. And so we'll give it just a moment there, and let me run it. It should create our resource account for us. Now, while it's running there, what I can do, because it may take a moment, it looks like it generated, okay, I was going to type in the next command, but I'm going to go look for this real quickly. In the resource group, we should also notice that we can see our storage account in here, and very soon it might need a little refresh there. You can see it. So there it is right there. And okay, so we did that through Bash, added that storage account. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go open my notepad again, and I'm going to go to get another line, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up for our next command. So we made right now our storage account using the resource group in West US. Now I'm going to go do as the next command, and I'm going to try to see if I can get the account keys here for it. So to do that, I'm going to need the name of this resource group, and I'm going to copy in it again. And I'm going to copy this right here to add it here. And then I'm going to go pull the name from the storage account. And so go ahead and I'm going to grab that account via keys here, and then I'm going to add it here, and it's going to go ahead and copy that. And let me take a look at the keys here that are there with this statement. So now let's go back to Bash, and I'm going to right-click and paste this in again. And it looks as though we don't have any extra keys here. So I'm just going to hit the right arrow to get to the other side of this, and then I'm going to hit Enter, where we'll hopefully get a little key list. And there we go. Now we have the key that we want to use to pick up here. It's key number 1. So there it is. I'm going to select that and copy it. And I'm going to paste it into our window here. So I have that. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull in, now that I have the account key there, I'm going to go ahead and grab something else here to have it, to create a container for us. So I'm going to have to type it out, and then I'm going to change the name of the account here. So the last digits there are the ones that are for the storage account name. Let me pick that up. And then I'm going to pull in the account key. So for the account key, it's right here. And I'll pick that up and I'm going to pop it in right there. So kind of a longer key there, as you saw. So we're going to have to go ahead and pick this whole statement up right here. So the Azure storage, we're going to create a container called backups, and we're going to have it create our storage account there. And then we're going to be able to get connected because we have the key to get connected to it. And if it works, it should say true. If it doesn't work, it will say fail. But we'll see what we can do. And so I'm going to go back into Bash, and I'm going to paste this in again. I'm going to hit my right arrow, and then I'm going to get this unhighlighted, and I'm going to hit enter to run it. And it's going to give it a minute, and we're going to see if it can create that container, and it looks like it has. Okay, so let's see that container backups is there in our storage account. And we'll see if we go get into data, storage here, there's containers, and there's backups right there. Okay, so it looks really good. Okay, so what do we need to do next is I'm going to go back into my notepad, and in the notepad I've been working with here, I'm going to work with another command here. This one is actually going to get, let's see, this is one where we're going to get the SAS signature. So we need the SAS signature. Let me have it typed out. We need the SAS order to be able to get connected to the container. So I'm trying to get that SAS key for that container. And that's the objective here. So what I'm going to do is a few things. I'm going to need to grab, let's see, I'm going to generate SAS for the backups container. I'm going to have to pick up the name of the storage account again. And you can see why I do this in Notepad. It just makes it a little easier to do. And then I'm going to have it create the SAS key using the account to get into the container. So let's put that in. We'll paste that right there. And then what I want to do is I'm going to change the expiration so we can see the permissions. I'm going to get right here, and I put the expiration on this. I'm going to make it 25/12/31, so a little further time out. And you can adjust this based on your own date here. It has to just be a little further out. Just some date in the future is good. And this is a good format for that. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and let's get the whole thing copied there. And I'm going to go back into Bash, and I'm going to paste it in. And this should hopefully go, I'm going to hit the right arrow there, and this should hopefully generate for me the SAS key. So let's see if we can get that SAS key, and there it is. That's the SAS key we want. And we're going to use this to get the get connected to the container. That's what it's for. And I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste that into my notepad. And what we'll see there is that option there. Okay, so now I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go into the Management Studio, and let's get back in. And I'm going to create a new query window here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and type this in. And this is to create a credential. And now there's a number of things I have to change to make this happen. But this is so I can back up the database, my AdventureWorks 2017, into that container in Azure called Backups. That's the idea. So let me see if I can paste the key in right here, that SAS key. And I think I might still have it available to paste. Let me see. That should be it. Then I need to put in my storage account name. So I'll go grab the storage account name from the notepad. And let me copy that. And then I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to change this out to reflect that storage account. So we're going to create a credential here that's going to get us connected to our storage account with SAS, to the container called backups. And this is all that it's looking for here. So I need to change this out here also with the storage account. And so this will make a credential if it doesn't already exist. And it should do the credential, and there it will be. But what we'll do, so let's create the credential so I get connected to the backups container there in my storage account. So we have the key now, and then what we need to do, the credential is created, is we need to do the backup now. And let's look at the command to do the backup. And I'm going to type it, and I'm going to have to make some changes to the storage account here so it knows where to back it up at. And actually, I'm going to go pick it up from my notepad. And I'm going to copy that back in here for the storage account. And notice storage account.blob.core.windows.net backups is my container, and the credential has been created, and the backup should be able to back up that AdventureWorks 2017.bak file to that container. So this is going to get me connected to the backups container in my storage account, and all I need to do is execute this and see if we can get it to work. And let's see what happens. And it looks like it's executing now. Now, if it doesn't work, there is a code to drop it and recreate the credential. So hopefully you found that helpful. And this lab can take a little bit of time, as you can tell. Probably the hardest thing is just getting it authenticated into Azure. So that's kind of the trick there. And I logged on with my Azure login, and it's also available there in Bash. And I logged into Azure and Bash. So this should be a fun one. We can wait for it to execute. It might take a little bit, but there it goes. And what we have seen now is it's been backed up into Azure. So it's able to process that, and it looks pretty good. And we'll see if we can see it out there in Azure. So when we go back into Azure and we go into the backups container, there it is. There is our AdventureWorks 2017 backup. It looks great. So have fun with this lab. This is a good one. It may take a little bit of time, but it looks great. Have a good one. Hope to see you in the next section. Please take advantage of our many references that we have here on this slide, like business continuity and HADR for SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machines, and restore a database from backup in Azure SQL Database for monitoring backup activity for the SQL Server managed instance, and also for configuring a failover group for Azure SQL Database. Please use the URLs that are here. Throughout this learning path, we explored high availability and disaster recovery strategies, including key concepts such as recovery time objective and recovery point objective. And we examined HADR options for both IaaS and PaaS environments. We also covered database backup and restore techniques, including methods specific to IaaS and PaaS platforms. Finally, we reviewed deployment considerations for high availability and disaster recovery solutions, including Windows Server failover clustering, availability groups in Azure, active geo-replication, and auto failover groups. Thank you so much for viewing this session. Hope to see you in the next.